All right. Well, here's volume 3 in my series on React state management. Again, what I'm doing is just taking the same app and recreating it using different state management methods in React. I started with the container pattern, which is just making a component whose entire job is state management. I followed that up with Redux, the common one, and I'm going to try something a little bit new. This is called RxReact. It was just recently debuted at JSConf. And it's basically trying to take the RxJS library and make it work with React. It has a very similar feel to Cycle.js, where it's like, the user is a function that takes in the current input, that takes in the current presentation and produces an action, and then the UI takes the action and produces a new presentation based on that. So this is kind of similar in a way. I'm going to see kind of more what that looks like. But to start this, I need to talk a little bit about Rx, which is reactive extensions. Now, this is a library that has implementations in a lot of different languages and frameworks. It started out with a .NET implementation, I believe, in C# and has since made its way all over. This is basically the RxJS being added to React. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. RxJS has this thing called an observable. Now, if we think about different ways of handling values, and we think of a grid where we have synchronous values or asynchronous values, and then on another line we have one value or many values. Well, obviously, primitives are one synchronous value, so that could be a number, a Boolean, a string, maybe an object, depending on how you're using it. But then we could also have arrays, which it's one value that actually has many values in it. There's also async values, which is what promises is. Promise represents one asynchronous value. And we also have observables. Now, the deal with observables is that it is many async values. That's the idea behind it. It's a little bit like an array over time, or a little bit like a promise that keeps on spitting out values, depending on how you want to look at it. And the idea behind observables here is that you have an observable and you have an observer, and the observable just keeps on sending values to the observer as long as the observer is listening. One of the cool aspects about observables is also that you can then do operations on these streams. Now, by the way, if you've done Go, this is a lot like channels. But you can do operations in these streams. For instance, here's a stream of numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I can have a map operator that works a lot like the map operator from arrays. In this one, the map returns, given an x, returns x times x. So let's take a look at that. If I had 1 come in, well, then on this other observable, 1's immediately going to also come in. They're both going to emit 1. As soon as num with the, just emits 2, then the num's pipe map is going to emit 4. 3, and then 9, 4, 16, 5, 25, 6, 36. So, and then as the nums stream ends, so too does the stream derived from it. By the way, I'm going to note out that the putting a $ at the end, this is just a convention we use. It's often used with RxJS. It's kind of like how if you put a $1 before, if you're using jQuery and put a $1 before, that's a jQuery result. That just means, hey, this is an observable. That's it. So let's try this with a filter. If we had a filter is odd, well, one would emit on the filtered one because 1 is odd. 2 would emit, well, nothing would happen. The filtered one wouldn't actually emit that. But as soon as it emitted 3, then 3 would be emitted. Same thing with 4 is ignored, but 5 it shows up and 5 is emitted. And then 6 is ignored. The stream ends, and then the other stream ends. I also want to show one more thing we can do, which is merge. Now, there are a lot of operators, and there's a lot of things we can do. I'm just showing a couple of them, but I wanted to especially show merge. Merge basically lets us take two streams and concatenate them in a very specific way using a specific strategy. So what merge does is it basically emits everything from everything, right? So if I have one, my merge stream is going to emit one. B has A, two. So it just basically emits anything that's being emitted on either of the two streams. And then A may end early, but until B ends, until they both end, that's when this new merge stream ends. So these are some of the things we can do with these streams. We're going to think about this as basically just a bunch of signals over time. The way RxReact brings this idea in is that you have basically your UI, you have some inputs and you have some outputs. So you have a bunch of signals coming in as the inputs, a bunch of the signals coming out as outputs. And the outputs can feed directly into the inputs, or it might talk to some native APIs in the browser, or it could even talk to network APIs. But there's going to be some sort of link between the inputs and outputs, and we're just going to be kind of looping them into each other. All right, well, let's go. I'm going to take my Redux version here, and I'm going to fork it. All right. We're going to call this RxReact. And I'm also just going to reload this because I know, yeah. Okay, so I am going to make a new file here. To-do list container rx.jsx. All right, I'm going to go to I want to import to-do list presenter. Let me move the test out of the way. From / to-do list presenter. X. And for right now, I'm just going to return to-do list presenter with tasks of empty tasks just to kind of get me going here. Or not return, sorry. It should be export default. It's just going to be a function that returns me that. Okay. So I'm going to go to my index.js. Right now, it has a lot of Redux stuff on it that I'm not going to need. So get rid of that, and that, and that, and that, and that, and that. I'm going to rename this to-do. Say it's going to come from / to-do list container rx. I'm going to get rid of the store here and get rid of the provider. All right, now if I look at my browser here, export default function. Oh, of course, if I'm going to do that, I need to bring in back from. There it is. All right. I'm going to bring this down to the bottom. So I haven't done any Rx yet. I'm going to have to bring in a few more dependencies. So I can get rid of some of this stuff. I might as well keep it. But I'm going to add a dependency here of RxJS. All right, I'm also going to grab RxReact. There it is. And that should cover me for the main things I need here. So what I need to make this actually work is I'm going to use, I'm going to import from RxReact core. I'm going to import something called with view model. And I'm going to create a view model. Now, a view model is another term. It was one of the, there was a while back, a few years ago, where there was these many very different uh, takes on the MVC idea. There was MVC, there was MVP for MV presenter, for model view presenter, and one that Microsoft actually came up with was called MVVM, model view model. And the view model just had kind of everything that you needed. You know, it was a combination of data and state and the ways to change that. So they've retained that name here. And yeah, and all I really want to do here is I want to create a view model. I'm going to create the inputs to the system here. So const VM equals inputs, and this is going to need an observable for tasks, an observable for loading, and an observable for adding count. So I'm going to import so the from is going to let me create it's going to create an observable of one value. So const tasks, the task observable is going to be from, and I kind of got to do it as a nested array, but this just makes it so that there is one array. So I'm going to say tasks is tasks star. I'm going to export default with view model. I'm going to pass in that VM, and I'm going to pass in to-do list presenter. And now it has a task of an empty array. I'm going to say const loading equals from true. I'm going to pass that in here. Now we can see that it is loading tasks. And then I guess we need an adding count. From 0. Adding count. Right? And currently the adding count is at 0. I'm going to set it up to 1. And we should see, yeah, adding 1 to do. Good. So we have our basic stuff here. All right. So first thing I want to do is the get tasks process. So I'm going to import get tasks from /task service. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make an observable of from get tasks. So const tasks from API equals from, and I can pass either an array to from or a promise. So I'm going to say from get tasks. Make that a question mark there. Okay. Now, what I can basically say is that, hey, I want the tasks to be whatever this emits, but starting with this. So I'm going to change this real quick. I'm going to say that tasks is task from API dot pipe. And I'm going to do my first operator here. So I need to bring in some operators. Import from RxJS/operators. And then what I'm going to have is start with. What this says is start with. What this does is starts with 0 tasks and then eventually has all the tasks, except the fact that this loading is causing a problem. So I'm actually going to say that this is going to be a very similar thing to how tasks works. It's going to be tasks from API. Now, when that task from API finishes, I'm going to want it to become just true. I just want it to be true. So, or false rather, because it's going to be loading false, right? So I'm going to pull in a thing called map to. That basically says when this thing resolves up here, it's going to map to false. So, um, so basically, for the tasks, that's going to be a signal of, hey, here's a bunch of tasks. But for the loading, it's just like, oh, this got done. Okay, then false. My loading is now false. Again, this is very hand wavy. I'm breezing over a lot of this. And it may seem like, well, that makes sense as a sentence. I'm not sure I'll be able to get there myself, which is fine. This definitely takes some practice. I've run through this example a few times myself, just get it to work. So let's keep on moving. Now let's do the adding count. The first thing that has to start from this is that it's really easy to have a thing start before something goes, but for the adding count, that actually relies on somebody adding a task. So now we're going to create some outputs from our system. Basically, the UI has outputs that we can then use to trigger other things. So in order to do that, I need something called a subject. A subject is basically an observable and an observer all at the same time. And the idea is that I can take a subject, do dot next, and the dot next makes the stream that I can listen to. So I'm going to say that const add task equals new subject. I'm going to pass this as one of my outputs. Add task. Add task. Okay, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to listen to this just to see that it's doing what I wanted it to. Add task dot subscribe. Now console.log add task. All right, so if I run this, I should see on the console, add task, finish Sudoku. Cool, cool, cool. That is now done. Take out that subscribe. Now, my adding count, it needs to go up every time that I add a task. So now this is going to be adding task or add task and dot pipe map to +1. Perform a scan, and a scan is a lot like a reduce. It's actually very similar to how Redux works. It's a lot like a reduce, but it actually also gives us the value every time something happens. So I'm going to scan that, and it's going to just be, hey, um, whatever it was, whatever the current value is, a plus b, starting with 0 and start with 0. In fact, I feel like I could just take this out for a moment and just say a plus 1. Yeah, that'll work. So now, if I say finish Sudoku, do it again, adding 1, adding 2. Now, it doesn't actually release them at all. So what I'm going to do is have const new tasks, new task. And what this is going to be is I'm going to do a here flat map. Add task is a observable of task name, so that's what I'm getting in, and I'm going to say from add task name. So if I console.log new tasks here, sorry, I should say new tasks.subscribe. Console.log val. If I do finish Sudoku here, yeah, I should see that, okay, this has been a created task that came in, and it came in a couple seconds afterwards. All right, so now I have this thing of new tasks. I have a stream of add task, I have a stream of new task. And now what I can do is say that adding count, I'm going to do that merge that I talked about. I'm going to bring that in from RxJS. And what I'm going to say is I want to merge add task star dot pipe map to 1. Right? So that's my first stream. And the second stream is new tasks dot pipe map to -1. And then that I'm going to pipe to scan A plus B, start with 0. And now at least when I create new ones, nanotube nana, this will go back down. Now I haven't actually added the new tasks yet. And this is kind of where we need to start getting a little clever with what we do with tasks. So I think here I'm going to make a Redux style reducer. A function task reducer. It has state and action, right? And the state in this case is tasks. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to say that switch action dot type case fetch tasks success is just going to be return action dot tasks and case I guess add task success. We're going to return tasks action dot new task. All right, so let's actually make these work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do another merge here. And the first one I'm going to merge is get tasks. That's what I called it, right? Where'd you go? Oh, tasks from API, sorry. pipe map. So I'm going to use map, which map2 just always I figured you had the same value. Map is, oh, you want a value based on the value coming in. You want to actually do a transformation. So so I'm going to map that it's going to have the tasks, and I'm going to make a new object, type fetch tasks success. All right. And then I'm also going to say for the new tasks, we're going to pipe map new task, type add task success new task. I'm going to merge those two and then do another pipe scan task reducer. That's going to start with an empty array, and then start with the array. So now there it is. I have a few added there already. Finish Sudoku, 1 banana, 2 banana, and now it's added to the end. All right. Now I'm seeing that I'm tending to use this sort of like scan start with a few times, right? Here's scan start with. And I'd like to create my own operator to operate on observables. And it's actually pretty easy. An operator is just a function that accepts an observable as an argument and returns an observable. So knowing that, I can kind of combine this scan and start with pretty simple. So const reduxify function reduxify. It's going to take in an initial state reducer. And it's going to return a function that takes an observable and returns an observable. Specifically, an observable that starts by scanning reducer initial state of that observable, and then we wrap that again into start with initial state. Or another way we can write this, return observable obs.pipe and reducer initial state start with initial state. So now I can just say reduxify tasks reducer initial state of an empty array. And same thing. Oh, seem to have some error. Function justified. I'm going to see what is going wrong. This dot accumulator is not a function. Okay. It says this dot accumulator is not a function. Oh, did I get him backwards? I got him backwards. Specify initial state and then user. There it goes. It's working just fine. We're also going to refresh this to clear out some of that old data. There we go. Okay, so now we have the toggle task. Actually, I'm also going to show another utility that I really like. Um, I use this with Redux all the time. I didn't use it in the last thing because I figured I didn't want to introduce one more thing. But here we go, Redux create reducer. It's one of the ways that you can kind of basically create a reducer, but have a lot less boilerplate. So I'm going to import create reducer from Redux create reducer. And what I'm going to say here is that const task reducer equals create reducer. My initial value is an empty array. And then I just write handlers for each type. So one for fetch tasks success. Well, that's just going to take in the old tasks and an action that has the tasks in it. And I just want to return the tasks. I'm also going to have add task success, which takes in the current tasks and a new task and gives back that. And I don't need to worry about the default. So my task reducer is a lot shorter now, which is good because I'm going to add some stuff to it. And what I'm going to add is we have to do toggle task. Toggle task does not yet do anything except for cause a problem. So I'm going to create a toggle task equals new subject. And I'm going to pass that here. Right. If I put a, I'm going to kind of do this below that. If I put a subscriber here, console.log, toggle task val. I should see there. It's told me that I clicked B12347, the ID for the second one, which is exactly what I wanted. So, right, I'm going to remove that subscription. And I'm going to create a new toggle tasks equals. It's going to be very similar to the new tasks. It's just going to be toggle task dot pipe flat map task name from at toggle task. It's not task name, it's task ID. Okay, I'm going to bring that in here. So now this is a, if we subscribe to toggle task dot subscribe toggle task. What we would see here is I'm going to click this, and here's toggled that thing, and then toggle task, and there's the full one. I think I have a console log in my service, but yeah, so that's what we see when it's completed. All right, so now What we have to do is we have to update our task reducer. Toggle task pending. That's going to take in current tasks and, of course, the task ID. And here, and we're going to want to grab our produce code here. And of course, import produce from immer. Where was I? Yeah, here we are. So task ID is task ID. Found task loading is true. We're going to have another thing to merge here. Toggle task $.pipe app task ID. And this is going to create type fetch tasks. Toggle task pending task ID. So we have the action being sent. We have the reducer to handle it. And now, at least we know it sets it to false, right? Doesn't do anything on the update yet, though. So now we have to have that. Toggled task.pipe map, not map2, just map. All right, so this has the toggled task here. I'm also going to make sure that it has, so toggle task pending. I'm going to say, I can easily just say toggle task here. Yeah, I'm going to keep that. Okay. Now, up in this one, that's the toggle task pending. We have to make something for toggle task success. Going to have tasks, and it's going to have a toggled task. And here I'm going to return reduce tasks draft. And again, I'm just going to copy the code from here. There we go. And now we have toggle task dot task ID. All right, let's see if we can get this to work. Banana, two banana. Seems to be taking a moment. All right, let me put this in a larger thing, see if I can't find why that wouldn't work. There's always a bit of debugging in the process. So, you know what? I'm going to take a look at this actions thing a bit closer. So here's what I'm going to do. I am going to, instead of saying this is const tasks, I'm going to say const task events equals this stuff, and then const task equals task events. And that way, the point of doing that was so that I could do a task events dot star dot subscribe, not dot star, just subscribe. Log task event. And this is what it's like to debug promises or debug subscriptions, or rather, I should say debug observables. That you just kind of put a subscription on them, check to see what they're doing. It's really easy to tap in. It doesn't change the rest of the operation. So break this out again. Open up that. Okay, and I should see, yeah, there's fetch task success, toggle task pending. All right, I don't seem to have a toggle task success that came through. There's part of the problem. So toggled task dot pipe map toggle task success. Probably a few of you out there saw that, but this is the sort of mistake you can make, and this is actually one of the really nice parts about using observables like that. Let me just see if it works here. Banana, 2 banana, 4 banana. Apparently not yet. Toggle task success. Make sure I spelled it the same way both times. All right. All right. Seem to have closed my dashboard. Close my demo. Classy. All right. I'm looking for never, never that. Two list containers RxJSX. Um, right. Now, I would point out that it's actually also really easy to do proper testing to make sure these things work. But since we're kind of debugging it live, let's see. All right. I've listed on the fetch task there. So toggle task success does have that toggle task. It is saying it is false, and also it is not actually running. It's getting those twice too. Okay, so label that. Anything different? So it does get to the, oh, there's a -1. So it doesn't know. Probably because toggle task has .id. That's my mistake there. All right. So yeah, it turns out I had made an error there. So it should just be, see if that fixes it. 2 banana. There we go. And it works. Took a bit of debugging, but there we are. Okay, and that is an example of what we can do with RxReact. Now, it does seem that we have a lot of streams kind of hanging out here. It doesn't necessarily need to be the way it is. We can easily kind of put some of the stuff in different files, have different ways of kind of combining them together. But yeah, every stream in here ends up being, oh, let me take out that task event. Any other subscriptions up here? I do. Yeah, this is just a way of being able to combine um, basically streams of information, streams of events together. And we can do all sorts of really cool time-based things like throttling, debouncing, limiting, basically like taking little windows of time um, and just figuring out different ways of optimizing our streams and our operations. They use this quite a lot at Netflix, which is well, they use Rx with React, but not necessarily the RxReact library. They use this quite a lot at Netflix, and they have found this solves a lot of performance issues they have. So yeah, oof. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. That is just a demonstration of what you can do with RxReact. Um, I really recommend learning more about RxJS. I see it being used in more and more libraries. Angular currently uses it, has it embedded, and it is just a really great way of being able to do some timing things. It's kind of like how promises are a bit of a you get a big jump in productivity from callbacks once you get used to them. This is a sort of this can be a next level on top of that. Yeah, they're really fun to actually be able to use. And RxReact is actually a really great way of getting to use them. RxReact, if you're comfortable with React already, then this RxReact library is a really great way of kind of being able to do stuff. I learned a lot just doing this one example about the stuff that was available, how to combine operators. And yeah, if you're wanting to get into Rx, this is a great way to do it. Anyway, again, I know it sounds cheesy, but like and subscribe. If you click the little bell, you can get a notification whenever I make anything new. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.